Outlast, released in 2013 by Red Barrels, is definitely a phenomenal game because it runs on the survival mechanics, similar survival mechanics to Amnesia. I've never played Amnesia, never really drew my attention, but Outlast did. I've seen YouTubers play it first. And it's definitely an experience. It is probably the truest to a possible horror movie experience in real life to an extent, where we would have necessarily no weapons and literally have to rely on flight for our survival instincts. However, in this game, you are playing as Miles Upshur, which some people have come to the conclusion that the name is based off an old saying, uh, miles up the shore without a paddle. I've never heard that full saying in my life. I've heard up the creek without a paddle, but in essence, it means you are too far in to give up now. You're in too deep. And it is set at a place called the Mount Massive Asylum. Now, Miles comes to the place after receiving a whistleblower letter about something going on there. And Miles, being a journalist, well, he's going. And he's going armed with the only thing he has. He's going with his camcorder. This is a key item in your survival and moving about. So, once you get there, you have to explore. But something's happened at the asylum. You must, of course, sneak in. And you must also collect batteries. Batteries are your lifeblood in this game. You can recover from being hit at least once. But you need batteries to power the night vision mode on your camcorder. The game is also designed that you can have the camcorder on all the time. Apparently, having it on does not drain the batteries unless you're using night vision mode. And all hell has broken loose at this asylum. The inmates are loose. And depending on when you run across them, they will either appear completely neutral, they may be benign. Closest thing I could say to that is Father Martin. Or they could be a serious threat. And yes, there are some about like that. As you explore the place, you are gathering documents together. I don't know where you're keeping them. And given where you all the situations you end up in, I honestly don't know how you are handling, how you are keeping them. And you are moving through this asylum, trying to avoid death. And of course, one of the first big jump scares you get in this game actually didn't faze me that much. Is when you walk into one room that will open a door, a body comes swinging out at you from the dark. You go in, and there's a guy on a spike. He's not fully dead yet. He expires as you're talking to him. He's like, you got to get out. The variants, they're everywhere. And it's shortly after this that you encounter one of your first main problems in the game, and that's Chris Walker. Chris Walker is determined to, quote, kill everyone in there. And there's a reason for it. See, he knows what's loose. And he knows the last thing it needs is a host, or a possible new host. And so he's just trying to get rid of everybody. Because apparently they tried to make him a host of some sort. Of course, once he throws you down to the first floor from the second floor you're on, he thinks you're dead. It's about this time, as you are recovering from that Father Martin wakes you up, saying he's found a disciple. You've sent me a disciple, thank you. Father Martin is probably one of the most benign characters in the game, because he's not actively trying to kill you. Now, of course, when you find the front door locked, you run to a security room to try and unlock it, and Father Martin cuts the power, so you have to go down and restart the power. Of course, there's some variants down there that could be a problem. And so you literally have to outsmart them. Run around them, get past them. Now, once you start the power, it's a whole another matter. I should also point out that, of course, after Father Martin cuts the power, Walker comes. You gotta hide from him at the start and then make your way past him. You will find yourself trying to outrun him a few times as the game progresses, finding documents that explain things. Now, once you do, however, if we go back to the power restoration, after you've restored the power and go to unlock the door, Father Martin, quote, ambushes you and knocks you out, taking you to a cell in the male ward. And this is where you have to deal with this is where you first meet the twins. The naked twins. In fact, you have to avoid them They will kill you. Even though you find out that Father Martin has told them to leave you alone. Well, they do so for a little bit when they can't get at you. They aren't necessarily the brightest, even though they sound very intelligent compared to other inmates there. At one point where they are coming at you from both directions, your only option is to dive out a window and they believe you've disappeared. Now, as you're making your way, Father Martin has also left messages and paths for you to follow. That will eventually lead you down to the tunnels underneath that act, I guess, as a sewer system or something. Of course, Walker follows you. You escape from Walker many times, and one of the few areas where when I was playing through he was able to catch me was in this underground area. In fact, one part of it is rather flooded. And it's a big room, and you can't move fast in this room until you get up onto a scaffolding. Which, of course, when you get up there, he hears you. And I had to do this a few times because I couldn't get the jump right. When you climb out of there, you head over to the area that is, quote, the female ward, in which you get instructed that you have to get back over to the administration and the chapel area. And I think you go through the courtyard at this point too, or after this point. You have to get through the cafeteria, and of course an arsonist has set fire to the cafeteria. So you've got to pull out the water by reactivating the sprinkler systems. Of course, impeding your progress on that is Walker. At least Walker doesn't try and reach and grab you through like a skinny gap like he did before. And it all comes down to being sneaky around Walker, staying out of his line of sight. Of course, once you get through that, go out in the courtyard and you'll have your first real encounter with Walrider. And then you find out, oh, Walker's coming. So you literally have to outrun him again to get into the female ward. I think that's when you get into the female ward. Somewhere in there. So you now have to make your way back over to the administration block. During this time, now of course during all these events, actually before going out into the courtyard, you meet Traeger, an exec who likes to fancy himself a doctor. Now, of course, amongst all of the variants, he's actually one of the more literal, one of the more talkative ones. Well, he's more of a man of science, flawed science. He is dangerous. I mean, he literally cuts off 2 of your fingers in the game. But as Upshur makes his way, of course, you have to outrun him. You have to outmaneuver him. If he catches sight of you, you've got to find some way of making him lose sight with you. Get the key to the elevator and get the hell out of there. Of course, that's the trick. Then we jump back, go through the court, get through the cafeteria area, the courtyard area. And Father Martin bids you to follow him. Of course, the trick is you can't necessarily follow him straight away, so you have to literally climb to upper levels while avoiding the twins and some other dangerous variants. And once you make it over there, you find a movie theater where you hear about the morphogenic engine. You may have found documents stating about a Dr. Wernicke, if I'm saying the name right. And he is a former Nazi scientist. And there is a bit of truth linked to this, because he was brought over during what is called Operation Paperclip. And this was a CIA operation in which they got certain German scientists out of Nazi Germany. In part to benefit, and they were pardoned for their crimes. Well, Wernicke would be one of those scientists who is working on nanotechnology. And he is part of Project Walrider. You will also see references in the game to MK Ultra, which was apparently a CIA operation or covert operation to design psychic agents, psychic weaponry, using like remote vision to find out information. Now, after you see this film and regain your camera, because at some point you lose it, you are then able to get to the chapel. Of course, the twins are guarding the chapel right at the chapel door, and they do nothing at this point. In fact, at this point, they become docile, and of course, you witness Father Martin, basically quote, hang himself on a cross and then have them set fire to it. And now you are allowed to get to the elevator. You get your elevator key. And thinking you'll be able to get out of there. But in turn, it sends you all the way down to the facility, where the morphogenic engine is. Of course, you're not necessarily looking for the morphogenic engine. You're looking for another way out. You spot another way out. However, just as you're about to head to it, you have another encounter with the Walrider. And as you run from the Walrider, you end up running right into Chris Walker, who's about ready to kill you when the Walrider kills him. And it's not pleasant. It is not a pleasant way to go, the way Chris Walker did. I mean, I felt bad for him. Yeah, he was trying to kill me, but that was not a way to go. Of course, you then meet Wernicke, and he explains about things and tells you that you need to basically get rid of Billy. Billy is the one who is the host for Walrider. So it's believed that if you kill Billy, Walrider will cease to be. And so you basically go to the morphogenic engine room and you take the steps to shut Billy's life support systems down and then kill him. And, of course, Walrider does cause some problems with that. Of course, when you are successful, well, Walrider attacks you and then appears to disappear. When you go to leave, limping along at first, is then you discover that the Walrider has chosen a new host and it's you. Which sort of makes it look like Chris Walker was not necessarily the bad guy he seemed to be after all. This is only discovered when part of Murkoff's, the company that's funded the reopening of Mount Massive Asylum, their task force comes in with Wernicke. They shoot at you, and it's like he's become the host. And it basically ends with that. This was a very excellent game. Disturbing in some ways because apparently this asylum still used some of the brutal practices of its predecessors. However, in the long run, it's very creepy as can be very unsettling. They did design DLC for it, which I will probably never play, mainly because there's a little bit more than I can safely take. I've seen someone play it. I've seen someone play Outlast 2, but I cannot bring myself to play them because of some of the disturbing content that's in 2, as well as some of the disturbing content that they stuck in Whistleblower. And while Whistleblower DLC is in essence part of the game, some treat it as its own separate entity. Because in essence, you get part of it that's set before Miles arrives there, and part of it set basically around the wake of the incident before Upshur leaves, now containing Walrider. But you get to play as the person who sent the letter to Upshur in the first place. Is Outlast a good game? It is a great game. It was done right. It utilizes what it has correctly to have the maximum effect. Would I replay it? Personally, I don't know if I ever will replay it. I may one day replay it. It's one of those games that it's an experience. I remember even telling my brother-in-law that if it was coming to Switch, that was a temptation for me to get the Switch. And I think that surprised him, too. Because he didn't think I'd play games like that. But this is a game I think, I would say I would play, I would recommend others play. I would not recommend Outlast Whistleblower. I probably wouldn't recommend Outlast 2 due to the more disturbing content they put in those games. But overall, I would definitely recommend Outlast. I would recommend you try and play it once. If you don't think you can handle it, then don't play it. That's what I do have to say, because you have to be ready for jump scares. They happen. If you've watched playthroughs, you will still get scared by them. It may desensitize you to some, but you can still get scared by others. It's a fun experience. It can be a fun experience as long as you can handle it. You just have to keep telling yourself this is only a game. But it's a great game. I will give it that. It does what it does very well. And that's all I'm going to say about Outlast. I do thank you for listening to this. If you've listened the whole time, thank you very much. And please subscribe to the channel and give this video a like, and like some of the other stuff. Watch some of the other stuff that I have up there. I have tons of games that I put up that I've played through. Some I'm still working my way through. So please check everything out. And until next time, this is Rich Kale here on YouTube, Rich Gen X elsewhere. Bye all.